Vm is the peak value or maximum value. Equation 1 represents a periodic voltage signal. Vm is the peak value or maximum value, also known as amplitude of the signal. Small v as a function of time is the instantaneous value. And then there are the other parameters we already know about them. Omega is angular frequency, which is 2 pi f, where f is the frequency in hertz, omega is in radian per second, theta v is the phase angle of the signal. Okay. Now, all this is there in the document. You have the document. If necessary, you can always go back and double check things. This is how we define things in a graphical sense. One important thing that I pointed out last time was that if you take the average value over a full cycle, it turns out to be 0 for these kind of signals. So it is conventional nowadays to take average value over half a cycle. You may recall that average value was defined as shown in equation 5. We take integral of the signal, integral of the instantaneous signal over one full time period, and then divide the result by the time period. That for a specific case where signal is Vm sin omega t gave 0. Even for a generalized signal represented by equation 1, you would still get the average value to be 0. Okay. For currents also similar things can be done. Equation 6 is the generalized representation of an instantaneous current. And IDC, which is the symbol for average value, it is also written as IAVG in many books. Definition is identical to that of the voltage signal. And it turns out that the average value is 0, obviously because of the formula is of the same type. So important thing that we saw last time was that no matter what theta v or theta I we choose, we still get 0 average value if we take the average over a full cycle. Okay. Another way of defining average signal is to take the average over half cycle, which is what I am showing in this equation, which is not numbered, but you see IDC and within brackets you see 1 by 2. That is the definition. When I put an equal sign with a triangle on top of it, that means that is the way it is defined. So IDC of over half cycle is defined as 2 divided by time period, integral between 0 and half time period of the signal. Now that turns out to have a non-zero value. You can double check these derivations. Okay. For voltage also, you'll get a similar result for average value over a half cycle. One parameter which is even more important than average value is the root mean square or RMS value, which is also known as effective value. By default, on all the AC equipment, this is the value mentioned. If you see a nameplate on any equipment saying 10 amperes, that means it is 10 amperes RMS. Nobody will mention that again and again. It is understood that you know. Unless something is specifically is mentioned, you assume that all current and voltage values given to you are RMS values. Okay. Now Vrms is defined by equation 8. Note that on the left hand side I have got square. So on the right hand side I have got 1 upon time period and integration over one full time period of the square of the signal. You have been taught all this, I think, in basic electronics, but I'm going over all this once again. So Vrms will be square root of whatever is there on the right hand side of equation 8. Okay, and when you take square root, don't take minus sign, always take the plus sign. Similarly, IRMS is also defined, as you can see, by an identical equation. Now, let's do this VRMS and IRMS calculation for at least one or two cases. Problem 3 does it for a generalized expression for voltage, which is Vm cos omega t plus theta v. And once you go and do the integration within the integral, you will obviously have to now square the signal, because that is the way it is defined. So if you square the signal, you get Vm square cos square of omega t plus theta v. Now you know that cos square theta can be expressed in terms of cos 2 theta, 1 plus cos 2 theta, and the whole thing divided by 2. Using that trigonometric identity, I go to the next step. I have taken 2 out of the integral. So, and Vm square is also a constant. So that also comes out. The rest of the function is the integrand over time. And that function has 2 components. First is a constant value 1, which when integrated with time will give you small t, and that after putting the limits gives us capital T. Second function, you can verify it yourself. After integral is done and the upper and lower limits of small t are put, the second component or second part of the integrand will integrate to 0. Verify it yourself. It's not difficult. So VRMS square turns out to be Vm square divided by 2, because capital T cancels out. As a result, VRMS is Vm divided by square root of 2. The voltage signal that we get in our homes, in our labs, is 220 volt nominally. That is the RMS value. So the peak value actually is 220 multiplied by square root of 2 volts. Okay. Here is a table that shows some practically used waveforms and their RMS value and average value and some other parameters. You can do these derivations if you want by yourself by using the basic definition. First entry, of course, is the well-known sinusoidal signal that we have been dealing with. Remember, 1 upon square root 2 is approximately equal to 0.707. That's why they are showing here. It's a current signal, I suppose, they're talking about. So they are saying 1 upon square root of 2 amperes. Sorry, A. Okay, it's not current signal, it is any general signal. A is the amplitude. What they are calling A is what I am calling Vm in my equations. So for sinusoidal function, the effective value is A divided by square root of 2, which is just 1 minute, 0.707 multiplied by A. They have missed A here for some reasons. Average value over half cycle, we have already seen it. It turns out to be 0.637. I have proven it in the previous pages of this document. VRMS upon V average is an interesting parameter to know. It is known as conversion factor. You can calculate this. It will turn out to be approximately 1.111 for this particular case. Okay. Reading errors. We'll come to measuring part later. Okay. Don't look at this column right now. Crest factor is peak value divided by RMS value. So obviously, this is square root of 2, which is 1.414 approximately. The second signal is a square wave signal. It's a symmetric signal. That means it has equal amplitude in the positive half and negative half. This probably you have seen in basic electronics lab also. The function generator produces such a signal. The results are given. You don't have to memorize the results, but important thing is that they are available in case you are interested. Third signal is a sawtooth or triangular wave. Again, for that derivations can be done. The results are shown here. And fourth one is a pulse. It's a square wave, but it is not continuous. One square wave, one pulse comes and then signal goes back to zero for the rest of the cycle. There also the derivations have been done. In this course, mostly we'll be dealing with sinusoidal signals. So other entries are there in this table, but most likely we won't be using them a lot. So don't worry too much. Here they have summarized the results for these waves. RMS value, crust factor, form factor. Basically what info is there in the previous table has been given again in this table. Okay. So the takeaway from this document is that we have average value, we have RMS value. RMS value is also known as effective value. And generally for AC signals, it is the RMS value that matters more than the average value. Because that is the one that is responsible for generating power consumption, that is heat, light, etc. Even the tube light, which you have got all around you, produces light based on the RMS value of the current that is going through the component. Okay. So let me stop this, and now I'll try to solve a few problems before I proceed to something else. Look at this problem. I would like you to solve it. Let me show you the full problem. Problem number 1. This is a water heater. You use it all over, even in your homes. I'm sure you have this gadget. The name we normally use for this is geyser. Geyser. What do you think will be the answer? Sorry about this. How would you calculate the resistance of the element? Element means the resistance inside. Can anyone give me the answer? Power, take it from me, which is given as 10 kilowatt, is VRMS into IRMS. Let me tell you, I'll prove it later, but take it from me right now. It's a 220 volt input, which is RMS value, and 10 kilowatt power is being consumed. So how much current would flow? That current will be 10,000 watt divided by 220 volts. How much is that? 10,000 divided by 220 volts. It gives you around 45.45 amperes. So you know the voltage supplied or voltage applied, and you know the current going in. Now use Ohm's law. 220 volt divided by 45.45. That gives you the resistance of the element. I'll show you the solution right here. Some very simple calculations that even mechanical engineers have to go through all the time. You will be getting this document, but this is a very straightforward calculation. Hopefully there is no mistake in calculations. Current is power divided by voltage, which is 10,000 divided by 220, which gives you 45.4545 amperes approximately. Resistance then is voltage divided by current. So 220 divided by 45.4545, which I think gives approximately 4.84. Okay. Now, second problem is even more interesting. The AC waveform shown below is known to complete 600 full cycles per minute. And 1 minute has 60 seconds. So the frequency is 600 divided by 60 cycles per second, which is, I think, 10 cycles per second or 10 hertz. The peak to peak value, which is 2 Vm, if you go back, actually the waveform is right here. This is the waveform. It's a sinusoidal waveform. Positive half cycle has maximum value A max, negative half cycle has maximum value on the negative side as minus A max. Peak to peak value is 2A max. Okay. That is given to you as 20 amperes. It's a current signal. So peak value will be 10 amperes, half of 20 amperes. Calculate the angular frequency. That is number one. I have told you that F, the frequency is 10 hertz. So omega will be 2 pi multiplied by 10. So much radians per second. Whatever is that answer. I'll show you the solution in a minute. Time period is 1 upon F in seconds. So 1 upon 10, which is 0.1 seconds. RMS value is peak value divided by square root of 2. We have proven it already. So 10 divided by square root of 2 volts. Average value, of course, is 0. And form factor is the ratio of RMS value and average value. So obviously, since average value is 0, form factor will be infinite. Let me show you the solution here. Omega is 2 pi F. F is 10 cycles per second. So 2 pi multiplied by 10. Yeah, I think this is correct. Almost 62.8 radians per second. The time period is 1 upon F. I'm going to move to a better device soon. Okay, most likely I'll be getting my laptop, so all this problem will be gone. So the time period will be 1 upon F, which is 1 upon 10 seconds, which is 0.1 second, which becomes 100 millisecond. Okay. The RMS value is peak value divided by square root of 2. So 10, peak to peak value is 20 amperes. So peak value is 10 amperes. That divided by square root of 2 gives you 7.07 amperes. Average value, we have already figured out analytically that it is 0, especially over a full cycle. And form factor is RMS value divided by average value. Obviously, the answer is infinity. Okay. So these two problems give you an idea of the kind of things that you may be asked in the quizzes. Simple problems. Multiple choice type of answers will be there in quizzes. So you have to take the correct answer. That's the way quizzes will be conducted for sure. Now, let me move forward. We have been talking voltages and currents. We have spoken a bit about power, but not too much. As mechanical engineers, you will be more obsessed with power. That is a fact. Let's look at how power behaves. How is power behaves? Oh, sorry, I opened the wrong. This is the power in AC circuits. You know that a real life electrical load will have some resistance, some inductance, and some capacitance. But rather than going to a general load, let me begin with ideal cases, assuming that we have only a pure resistive load. That will be case one. Then we would take a pure inductive load. That will be case two. And then we will take a pure capacitive load. That would be case three. Okay. And what happens to power? I've given you some results already in solving that problem, but how did we prove that power in a resistive load is Vrms into Irms? Let me prove it now. By the way, I'm using a word, single phase voltage source. What it means is you have only one generator, only one voltage generator. There will be discussion later on involving three-phase systems, which is how power is typically generated and transmitted all over the world, the AC power. But for now, we will be sticking to say single phase case. Single phase means one voltage generator in the entire circuit. This is a load which is purely resistive. It has only one resistance. That's it. Let's see how power behaves. Obviously, the voltage, assuming it's periodic signal, can be written as equation 1. Omega, etc. is known to you. Let me not read it out again. Okay. Now, this instantaneous voltage applied to the resistance R will produce an instantaneous current, small I, let's say, as a function of time. The ratio of small v and small I using Ohm's law will still be capital R. That is how Ohm's law works. In a purely resistive circuit, even the instantaneous values obey Ohm's law. That means Vt equal to R times It. And using that, I'm writing It. Now, in equation 4, if I plug in equation 1, I get Vm divided by R, which I am defining as Im, the amplitude of small I. And the rest of the factor is actually Vt has got theta V. So I should have been writing theta V here on the right hand side of equation 5. But what I'm doing is, for the sake of making a distinction, I am going to write the phase angle for current signal as theta I. Although I know that in this particular case, theta I and theta V are equal. Okay. Because you are only dividing by a fixed value R, which has no time dependence. So although I'm writing theta I on the right hand side of equation 5, it actually is theta V. That means both voltage and current flowing in the resistance are in the same phase. There is no phase shift between them. Whenever voltage goes to 0, current will also go to 0. When voltage goes to maximum, current will also go to maximum, and so on. Okay. Now what? we have figured out small I, that is instantaneous current, and small v, which is instantaneous voltage, which is given to us anyway. The product of these two, multiplication of these two, is defined as instantaneous power in the load, small p. Okay. If I use equation 1 for small v and equation 5 for small I, and multiply the two, what I get is Vm cos square omega t plus theta v. I'm putting theta I as theta v now. So interestingly, using the trigonometric identity again, that cos square theta is 1 plus cos 2 theta divided by 2. If I break it up, within the brackets, I see two terms now. One is a term which is not depending on time, which is simply 1. And the other term actually is a time dependent periodic signal, but now omega has changed to 2 omega. This is a very interesting phenomenon in AC circuits, that power, instantaneous power, has one component which is not changing with time, and the second component which is changing with time. The second component does not do any useful work. It is actually unnecessary, but it's there. Okay, so let me not go too far in that direction right now. I'll be coming back to that second component a lot in future. Now, if I have defined the instantaneous power and I've figured it out as equation 8, from there I can now define an average power in a manner similar to what I did for voltage and current. That means I write an average power with which I am denoting by capital P as 1 upon time period integral between 0 and capital T of small p dt. This is the way it is defined. Okay. Now try to figure out this value. You have the formula for Pt, which is equation 8. Put it in equation 9. Obviously, Vm square by 2r will come out. It's a constant. So outside the integral, you will get Vm square divided by 2tr, right? And then you have integral of 1 plus cos of 2 omega t plus 2 theta v with small t, and then you put the limits capital T and 0. Here it is. Now here I have omitted the mathematics, but you can again do term by term integration on the right hand side. The first term is going to give you simply capital T, because integral of 1 is small t. You put the limits capital T and 0, you get capital T. And that capital T cancels out with t in the denominator. So you get Vm square by 2r. The second term, you can do it yourself. It's too much, I guess, for me to show you each and every step. But second term, after integration and after putting the limits, will give you 0. Average power, I'm sorry, I've made a mistake. This should be capital P, I think. There's a bit of mistake here. I'll correct that. This is not small pt on the left hand. It should be capital P. Okay. The capital P value is independent of time. Although the instantaneous value was not independent of time, the average value turns out to be independent of time. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Which is a very interesting result. As I said, there is a typographical mistake. On the left-hand side, in the top equation, I should have capital P, not small pt. I'll change that before I send you the document. Okay. Now, another interesting part is, first read this carefully. Equation 8, this one, it shows that the instantaneous power is composed of two components, A non-time varying, that is constant component, and B, a time varying component. The average power, as seen in equation 10, it is also, this average power, by the way, is also known as consumed power, dissipated power, etc., etc. That power has no time dependence. This is the power that actually does generate heat, light, etc. in equipment. And this power formula is very important, Vm square divided by 2R, and we can further modify this formula, which I have not done here, but let me show it to you. Remember, the peak value of the voltage is Vm, and the effective value is Vm divided by square root of 2. RMS value is Vm divided by square root of 2, right? Vm divided by square root of 2 can be taken out from the right-hand side of equation 10. That gives you VRMS. Okay. The remaining term is Vm divided by square root of 2R, which gives you IRMS. The point which I'm going to write it down before I send you this document. The average power based on equation 10 can easily be shown to be VRMS multiplied by IRMS. Vm divided by square root of 2 is VRMS, and then Vm divided by square root of 2R is IRMS. So the average power in a resistive load is nothing but the multiplication of the RMS value of the applied voltage and the RMS value of the current that is flowing in the circuit. This is what we did in the problem, in the water heater problem that we solved. There I told you that VRMS multiplied by IRMS gives you the total power dissipated, which is the power that generates heat. Okay. Now, second case, it is actually going to get a little more complicated now. Suppose I have a pure inductor as a load. What happens in that case? Ohm's law cannot be applied, that's for sure. Small v is still given by the well-known equation, which is what I'm describing as equation 1. I'm renumbering equations here. To figure out the current, small I, in the circuit, in this case, we have to use this well-known formula for inductor. Small v equal to L di by dt. Okay. I think you know this formula. It has been taught to you several times in other courses. So if I use this formula, v equal to L di by dt, if I integrate on both sides with respect to time, I get equation 12. I'm ignoring the constant of integration. Even if I include it, it will not change the final result, that's for sure. So the current now has to be figured out using equation 12, not Ohm's law, which we did in the previous case. Current is 1 upon L integral of Vt dt, and Vt is of course Vm cos omega t plus theta. This works out to integral of cosine is sine, right? And then you have to divide the whole thing by differential coefficient of omega t plus theta v, which is omega. Theta v is a constant. So what I get is Vm divided by omega L sine of omega t plus theta v. That is the current, instantaneous current in the circuit. At this point, we define a parameter called reactance, 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 X, XL, that means reactance of the inductor, as omega L. I think you know this already, but I'm still going over it once again. We define a parameter called reactance of the inductor, which is denoted by XL, and it is defined as omega L, which is 2 pi FL. The unit for XL is same as the unit for a resistance. That means ohms. If I do that, then the current, the instantaneous current becomes Vm divided by XL sine omega t plus theta v. Now we want to fit this into standard current format. We know that standard form of current, instantaneous current, as shown on the left-hand side of this equation after 16. Equation after 16 on the left-hand side is the standard form of current in which I would like to fit the current that I obtained in equation 16. So suppose I equate these two, the actual value of current and the desired format of the current. Obviously, Im turns out to be Vm divided by XL, no issue about that. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, theta I will not be equal to theta V, which is what we saw in resistive load, but it's not going to be true anymore. Let's see what happens. Cos omega t plus theta I should be equal to sine of omega t plus theta V, if you want to equate the two. And sine of omega t plus theta V, I think, can be written as cos of omega t plus theta V minus pi by 2. Right? So if I compare now on both sides, I see that theta I is actually theta V minus pi by 2. In an inductive load, current and voltage have 90-degree phase shift between them. Because there's a minus sign, we say current lags, LAGS. If theta I is less than theta V, it is called as lagging. There's a reason why we call it lagging, but for now you just take it from me. If theta I is theta V minus pi by 2, then current is lagging the voltage. That means now when voltage will go to maximum, current will go to minimum, and other way around. Inductive load gives you a very interesting result. Now let's see what happens to power. Instantaneous power again is Vt into It. Don't get scared with the mathematics. It's not that difficult. If I multiply the two results that I obtained here, small v is Vm cos omega t plus theta v. Small I is Im cos omega t plus theta I. And theta I and theta v are related by this equation. So I put it all together and write small p. It turns out to be a reasonably complicated equation. I know that. Okay. One thing you will notice that small p now has no constant term. It is totally depending on time. In case of resistance, we saw that small p had a constant term and a time dependent term. Right? Here. 1 was there. But for inductor, that's not the case. What we are seeing is a purely time-dependent component, purely time-dependent instantaneous power. Now, as we did in the previous case, we take the average of this to figure out the average power, capital P. So you do 1 upon T integral between 0 and capital T of this entire small pt that we obtained. Again, I'll leave you with the detailed derivation, but let me assure you that answer will be 0. A pure inductor does not dissipate any power. Average power is 0. Okay. No heat will be generated. No light will be generated. That's the way it is. Okay. I think I'll stop this document here, but there's more, I think, to it. For purely capacitive circuit, it's a detailed analysis once again. But let me stop here and